Dun 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 dun. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but this is the video changelog for Shoreleave RC2. If you're unfamiliar with the map, Payload Shoreleave is a standard full-length payload map designed from the ground up to be the flagship map for the Frontline project. It was intended to showcase as many assets from the pack as we could cram into it, and be an example of the general aesthetic that we were going for it. If you want to use any of these models for your project, head over to frontline.tf and be sure to check out the Call to Arms video with the sick update style page while you're there. Unfortunately, after the December 2017 release of RC1 of this map, between life happening, taking a break from mapping, and everything else, it took me over 5 years to finally push this update out, so this has been a long time coming. I'm going to quickly go over the changelog and then loop back around to them to go into detail for the real big nerds out there. While a lot of it is not super exciting sounding, this whole update addressed a ton of quality of life issues on the map that made it unplayable for some, but will also just generally improve the feeling of playing on the map for everybody. As always, everything I release is a work in progress, so your feedback is greatly appreciated if you play on it or even just run around it. First and foremost, we did a massive optimization pass on the map, which should dramatically improve frame rates while playing. It's a big complex map, so there's probably going to still be a few rough spots, but the improvements should be like night and day from RC1. Next, it looks like we finally fixed the major crashing bug on this map caused by certain graphics configs. This will hopefully allow the map to finally be run on custom map servers with confidence. Another major quality of life improvement is that we knocked the compressed file size down by 40 megabytes. This will help it download much faster if you're trying to snag it in-game on the fly, but that said, it's still a good idea to grab it ahead of time because this map is still very fat. Next, we also removed a few props that were causing weird issues on the map, whether visual or otherwise. This also helped optimization and the file size in the process. We then went through and fixed a huge pile of minor and major clipping issues on the map. This includes a few out-of-the-map exploits and perch points where we didn't want players to stand. We next went through the massive pile of feedback given to us over the years about visual bugs, weird shadows, and just about everything else that we were told by the map by the many playtesters. We greatly appreciated all this feedback. And last, there was a number of slightly too dark areas in the map that were brightened up either for gameplay or just visual aesthetics reasons. And that's about it! This map was a crazy undertaking by myself, Freya, Void, and the entire Frontline asset team, and we can't wait to see it get used more with this update. As always, if you want to check it out, be sure to hit up the workshop submission page for it. While you're there, giving it a rating, favorite, and subscription always helps. A link for this is in the description below. Thanks again to everyone who has playtested and given us feedback over the years. We cannot thank you enough. So, that said, if you're not a huge nerd and don't want to hear all the fine details, this video is about done for you. Thanks for watching. Bye! Okay, you still here? Sweet, here's the real nerds. Let's do this. So the biggest thing we worked on for this update was optimization of the map. I did a number of things, including focusing on prop fades, no draws, anything I could do to squeeze out some more frames, especially in the problematic tight areas. I also added some new area portals and occluders in the worst places, but all of that aside, one of the biggest things that helped was fixing up some of the weird settings with a few key props on the map. The Frontline asset team was primarily composed of people who were used to creating items for the game, and some of the settings on items are different than props for the map. For example, our light post probably did need to have spy cloaking abilities enabled. Turns out, those settings are really taxing on a computer, especially when there's a ton of them. So, all of that was fixed in the pack, and we no longer have a million sneaky light posts, all ready to cloak whenever they were called on. Next, probably the biggest thing plaguing the map in terms of playability was a bug where we had anybody that had Matte Fong set to 0 would crash when they loaded the map. Unfortunately, this is a relatively common feature with a lot of high FPS graphics configs, and it made the map unstable for server owners who didn't want a chunk of their players getting kicked when they loaded. While I'm still not entirely sure why it was doing it, this specific signboard seemed to be the culprit. I dug through the settings for it a bit, but I still haven't quite figured out why, so I just removed it from the map for now. It's unfortunate because I kind of liked how it was a bit of foreshadowing for the finale of the map, but cutting it fixed the bug, and it's one less prop rendering, so it'll help optimization a bit as well. If I can figure it out in the future, maybe I'll bring it back, but who knows, we'll see. Shout out to Booney on the TF2 Maps forums for pointing out which specific prop was causing the issue. I tried narrowing it down myself, I thought it was some pipes, I thought it was a different setting, I thought I finally fixed it, and I still hadn't, but they pointed it out, and it's solved now. So they figured that out, as well as a number of issues, so huge thanks. Next was the file size. We brought the compressed map file from 150 megabytes to 108. The map had actually become an example of one of the largest custom maps file size-wise, so I'm happy to bring this down some. Absolutely the biggest contributor to this were the assets used. We used basically the entire Frontline pack. And luckily, the Frontline team has updated the pack since RC1 to clean up things a ton. They shrunk some file sizes, removed some unnecessary things in the files themselves, and added a ton of other little tweaks that really slimmed it down. Shout out to Void and SetiSocks for taking that on, it was a big undertaking. And hopefully this will help us shake the world's fattest map title. Next, I did remove a number of buggy props. This includes the sign that was causing the crashing and the sketchy light posts, but also a few props that just didn't want to get along with the lighting on the map and were causing some weird reflections. We also replaced the original Ivy prop that we used with the newer one that was created by Freya. I think it's super pretty. I really like how the new Ivy looks. Plus, again, anything that we could pull out of the map really helped optimization. As for the minor and major clipping exploits, we got a ton of feedback on little edges, ledges, and just like ways to jump out of the map that we stamped out with this update. On a map this size, it's super easy to misplace a clip, have something sticking out from behind a wall, or just not realizing that something isn't landing where you thought it was. I'm sure there's still some stuff left on the map, but for the most part I'm confident it's going to feel smooth and relatively low on exploits. That's all you can really ask for. This, along with the large amount of visual bugs we fixed, was almost entirely thanks to all the great feedback we got from playtesters and fellow mappers on TF2 maps and my Discord server. Shout out to Puxorb, Bigfoot Beto, Megapieman PhD, Billow, Ocarina, and everybody else that I'm sure I missed from over the years. Last, I tweaked some lighting values around the map to brighten up some areas, either adding new light props and lighting or just throwing a few ghost lights around to brighten things up. I noticed when I was running around that my player model was a little dark in areas, and I just wanted to make them stand out more and make it easier for team recognition, so I brightened some things up. And I also noticed that some of the new Ivy was a little bit dark, so I added some lights near it to really make it pop out visually. But that's about it. It was a ridiculously long time for this update, and I honestly did the majority of it in the last few weeks, besides the Frontline packaging updated and the things that were outside of my control. But I finally had time to sit down and do some mapping, and I started a new project. You guys get to be in on that for sticking around. And I kind of just got the bug to finally do this update, so I sat down, focused on it. It was ridiculously more work than I expected, but it took me about 2 weeks to get everything cranked out, and here it is. So I'm very, very happy to finally get this out the door into the world. And since you're the cool nerds who stuck around, feel free to join my Discord server if you'd like to talk, throw some feedback about the map my way, or even just get notifications about playtests. We're pretty much about once a week doing them at this point. But thanks for watching, and I greatly appreciate your support as always.